Hi.
Hey there.
Hey, how's it going?
So Tom, we had an interview about 2 years ago at Gamescom.
Right.
And I asked you who will be the final boss in Warlords of Draenor.
Why did you have to?
Yeah, obviously it was not Garrosh Hellscream after all, but I guess it would be a great question to ask you who will be the final boss in Legion this time, perhaps.
Troll opportunity number 2.
It's actually going to be Grommash Hellscream, of course. So yeah, we're actually keeping that secret for now. So have to wait and see. But this time we're sure we know.
Then let's talk about artifact weapons. How long will it take to complete all the artifact traits that are in the weapon? And if it will be in the middle of the expansion, how will you keep the weapons interesting so that you can still improve them? Will there be new traits?
Right. Well, it's going to be kind of as you complete the quest line for your order hall is when you unlock the 3rd relic slot, and that allows you to put in a 3rd relic slot, which increases the item level and of course adds to one of the traits that are in there. We also believe that it's likely that at some point we'll start making legendary relics, and those would potentially change the artifact more than what they do right now, which is adding to a current artifact trait.
What is your raid release plan for Legion? Let's say between Heimwall and the Blackrock Foundry was not that much time. Will it be different for the Nightmare and Nighthold, or will it be about the same?
We do think that there was actually too small of a gap between Heimwall and Foundry, and then of course too long of a gap between Foundry and Hellfire. So we do have a plan that should pace the content gaps out a little bit better. And even if that means having the content finished and in the game but not yet available. So we want to make sure there's good pacing in each one. But we feel like we have a very good, strong patch plan with with new dungeons and raids and a lot of other stuff. So we're really excited about that.
For the pre-patch 7.0, can you tell us a little bit more about it? Will it be phased, or will all the content be there from the beginning? And obviously it would be interesting when the patch hit the live servers,
It will be multiple phases. I can't say exactly when it's going to be. We have some tentative dates in mind, but we can't really share those yet. But it will definitely be a staged rollout. At first, it'll really just be kind of the server-side code and data. There will be some features like transmog available right away. Obviously, the class changes would take effect right away. But then it's probably about a week or 2 weeks, some number of weeks later, that Demon Hunter will become available, Demon Invasions will start. So there will be multiple stages to it. And then also with the Demon Invasions, there are multiple stages of progression of the Demon Invasions. So, they start off a little bit lighter and then they get more and more and more intense.
In one of the last beta patches, you made the change that players can only change their talents in rested areas and not in other zones.
Yep.
So I have to tell you,
Right.
It felt good. It felt really good before. Why the change at all?
It's definitely very nice for beta testing to be able to change them at any time. We're trying to find something that strikes the right balance between feeling like you have a lot of ability to change your talents to do different things, but at the same time not making you feel like every single time you fight some monsters that you should change your talents a little bit right before the fight starts, and that even applies to the outdoor world, right? Like, let's say you're in the middle of doing some questing, and there's a group of 4, and I kind of need those for this quest, but it would be inefficient for me not to open the UI and change this talent, and that talent, and that talent, because we feel like that would just lead to a very kind of clumsy game experience. So we want the right balance of feeling like this is your set of talents that you like playing with the most, but at the same time having a good amount of flexibility to change things when, let's say, you're gonna, I was doing questing earlier, but now I'm gonna do a dungeon, so I want a different spec for a dungeon or for a raid or whatever, without that becoming too costly. And that's why we're trying some of these different approaches to it. So far, pretty happy with the results. Granted, it's definitely a shocking change from the week before, when you could just change them at any time, anywhere, anyhow.
Let's talk about professions a bit. You really done a great job about them. The quests all in there, they are great. But there is this thing which is called the Obliterans Forge. And there's not much information about it.
Right.
So can you give us some more information?
Right. Ultimately, the Obliterans Forge is so that as you continue to craft items, that if they aren't, the best item for you or for somebody, we don't want them to have no value, right? And you can, because you can continuously upgrade your items, your crafted items. That's the Obliterans Forge is the mechanic to do that. You can essentially destroy crafted items to add power to other crafted items.
There are 2 5-player dungeons based in the zone Surama, and those are gated. You have to unlock them by questing the zone, and then those dungeons are awarding the same loot than all the other dungeons.
Right.
And why is that?
Yeah, it feels off.
Yes, it feels.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We're going to fix that.
Oh, okay. Great answer, I really have to say.
Yeah.
Thanks. Do you already have a schedule for the patches in Legion? I mean, in Wars of Draenor there was only 1 content patch. Can you tell us how many there will be in Legion? And
right, we definitely have a patch plan that covers our first 3 content patches so far. So we know very well what's going to be in those. We're not ready to talk about exactly what the contents are. Soon we'll start talking about patch 7.1, because patch 7.1 will actually go onto the PTR very quickly around the time that that Legion is being released, because we want to make sure that patch 7.1 happens in a pretty short amount of time after 7.0 comes out, to make sure that content is flowing into the game at a good rate. But you'll hear about that soon.
At least 2 more content patches than Wars of Draenor had, so
at least, yeah. We'll talk more about that later.
You already spoiled about the dungeon. Will there be more dungeons throughout the expansion?
Right. Well, there will be a pretty significant dungeon in patch 7.1, I can tell you that.
Oh my god.
and we do have plans for more dungeons and other patches beyond that.
In every expansion you are going to improve the graphic of the game overall. You bring in new features like the mist in Mist of Pandaria, or now the greater viewing distance. Have you ever thought about making a brand new engine for WoW, let's say a version 2.0, to improve it even more, to make it better?
No, we're not, and the reason for that being that we don't want to abandon everything that we've done so far. It kind of requires at a certain point, if we wanted to do that, to set up a new structure and pipeline for how we create art that would somewhat mitigate the amount of art that we've created so far to be used, and somewhat be kind of the concept of like a WoW 2.0 essentially, right? Like, do we completely use a new system, new engine, go for like more of an updated sort of normal map driven like next gen process? And we've never felt necessarily that WoW was needed that, at its core. It was always supposed to be, and it has been, about that painterly, more illustrated look. So we feel like by making incremental steps in improving our engine, we're able to accomplish keeping it fresh and keeping it relevant to the content that we're creating without necessarily having to go back and completely rethink from square one.
But isn't it very hard to add more and more new features over just making a new graphic engine?
It's so hard to say. It really depends on what the new feature would be and how that new pipeline would work. But it just doesn't feel at this point that it's necessary to drive WoW in a direction that we want to drive it. Like, we're very happy with sort of that box that we're in and being able to kind of push it farther and further and further. It feels like a really good bridge into the world for people who are accustomed to fantasy settings and more of an illustrative kind of painterly vibe. Adding normal maps and all the shiny bells and whistles of next gen rendering, what I guess is kind of current gen rendering at this point, it doesn't really accomplish much for us aside from just pushing it in a different direction. It's not like it really would visually upgrade us to a point where it would be noticeably different, in our opinion.
So about the legendaries, there isn't much information where you can get those, and
Right.
can you perhaps tell us more?
Yeah, so in this beta push, legendaries are going to be activated on the beta, but the way that they come into the world is through dungeon bosses, raid bosses. They can be in the cache that you can get for completing 4 world quests. And then, so those are the only places that they're currently available. Beyond that, we have we may end up expanding where they can drop a little bit, like for example, world quests that drop an item. We're exploring the idea of having those items be able to upgrade all the way to being a legendary item of that type. So that's a possibility, but that's not done yet.
My next topic is the Titanforge system, which is an upgrade to the Warforge system, where you can get actually 80 item level more than the original one, even in World Quest, which seems
Right.
a little high. Can you give us the reason?
Yeah. Really, the reason to do it is to make sure that it's always kind of exciting. Like when you finish that world quest, we think it's a little bit more fun when you thought you were going to get only an item level 810 item, let's say, but like, oh my God, it's 850, right? And that can happen. It'll be very rare. And so I think if you were only doing world quests, it's not very likely that you would end up having a whole bunch of armor that's of normal or heroic grade quality or anything like that. But it'll be really exciting that it's possible for an item like that to be able to drop.
In Legion, there is also this new PvP talent system, which only affects the PvP side of the game, and which really could help to evolve the PvP system a little more.
Right.
Was this decision especially made for esport or both aspects of the game?
It's really not deliberately for esport. In fact, I would almost say that, really the main driving reason to do the new honor system is just so that there's more depth of progression in the RPG aspect of PvP. Because it's, in a role-playing game like World of Warcraft, it's a lot more fun to play when you feel like your character is advancing in some way. And we found that with the gear-based model that we used before, where you would just kind of unlock your set, it felt like it was difficult to give you things that really felt fresh and new, right? It just kind of felt like, well, my boots are 20 item levels higher now, but they're exactly the same boots that I had before. They're just 20 item levels higher. And so it was hard to get excited about any of the gameplay consequences. Whereas we feel like the new PvP system really opens up a lot more gameplay as you progress through it. And that's kind of the part of it that makes it feel interesting and fun.
The artifact system seems a little bit odd and secondary spec unfriendly. Will there be a catch-up mechanic even for alts?
Yes, definitely. And that system already exists. It'll probably have to go through some more tuning to make sure we get the right values in place. But there are a couple elements that really drive that system. For one, as soon as you get your artifact, you'll see that you can start researching knowledge levels. Knowledge levels increase the amount of EXP that you get from any sort of EXP, artifact XP source. So that as your knowledge level increases over the weeks of playing, your other artifacts will also get faster.
For other characters?
Yes, also for other characters. Okay. Right. So because the knowledge level system also is based off of kind of like real time since the expansion launches. And so as time goes by, there's a multiplier on that value that will then make it so that, if you get an alt spec artifact a couple months after the expansion and you essentially get, one EXP item, you'll end up being able to buy like 5 artifact trades off of 1 EXP item for your alt artifact.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So thank you for the interview.
Yep.
It was nice again, and sorry for no question.
No,
At least there was one good one.
Yeah.